I'm not a jerk. I'll hurry if it's 5 to 10 minutes. If it's 20, I am getting a muffin, okay? You should too, right? Like, because what does a boss always say when you get there? They always go, it doesn't matter if you're a minute late or an hour. Late is late. It's like, okay, it's definitely going to be an hour then. It's all the same to you? All right, well, I got like 58 minutes left. That's definitely enough time to get a muffin for sure. I don't care enough to put in any effort with my excuses anymore. I really don't. I'm too comfortable at my day job. I walked in the other day. I was like, sorry I'm late. Traffic was, I don't know, hungover today. I don't know. You should get to be honest. You should get to just look at it and be like, sorry I'm late. I have trouble being on time for stuff that makes me sad inside.
My favorite part is to see a crowd go for is the thing about the boss. Where they're like, okay, well, it's definitely going to be an hour, just because, it's like a universe. Nobody likes working for anyone. Nobody likes to be under command, under control. So just a little moment of like, nah, fuck you. It's, it's a sweet moment, and it is. I think it's far away my most. Where I've had people be like, I thought about that joke today because ... It's just friends and like family alike. They're like, I thought of your joke today because I was late for this, or I thought about your joke because my boss is being an asshole to me.
Bosses are often our adversaries.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Anytime you can stick it to them, even if it's just in a joke, it creates that connection. Because even if you are a boss, like you've had a boss at some point where you're like, yeah, fuck that guy. Welcome to You Can't Laugh at That. This is the podcast where we take topics that aren't funny and we prove that they're funny, featuring comedians who have done just that. And our comedian guest today is Sam Evans, based out of New York City. What's going on, Sam?
Hi. Hello, guys. How are you?
Fantastic. We're getting back into the game, getting back on stage and making people laugh again. And it's about damn time.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, you're pretty fresh back into to stand up again. How's it felt so far?
It was rocky to begin with because I did this thing where I didn't go to shows during COVID because I'm responsible, and that was a lot of comedians around here weren't, and they are doing the same they were before the pandemic, but it's I don't know. It's just been. It's fun now, though.
What I'm getting is that you didn't want it bad enough. Okay, that's what I'm.
COVID? No, I didn't.
That hustle culture is contagious, Steve. You gotta lean into that.
Yeah, I don't want to wheeze for the rest of my life, so.
That's a fair point, but it's also a nice character trait. You can point to that 20 years down the road and be like, remember when? The good old days. The good old days.
Yeah, good old days when I was top cognitive functioning.
Yeah. I read something where they're finding like long-term impacts in cognitive function. People who have had COVID bad enough.
Perfect for writing jokes.
Yes, absolutely. If you want to make connections between setups and punchlines, you need to get COVID. No, the hustle culture, that's something that came up in the middle of COVID. And I thought that was super interesting because it was basically like sacrifice your mental well-being to do like 5 shows a night. Go. Well, what's your take on that whole dynamic, Sam?
Well, somebody did an article about it, right? And that's sort of what popped up in the zeitgeist again, especially the comedy zeitgeist. I think anti-hustle culture. I did come down in favor of the article. I mean, at some point you do have to do like a lot of work and stand up and stuff like that. But we do. We certainly take our health for granted, mental and otherwise. Steve, and there are people that are like, during the pandemic, I'm not here to start a flame war, but a lot of people just doing shows when it's like, okay, but you are being selfish right now. You need to just stay home for the good of literally everyone in the world, and you can't do it. And that is a sickness at that point,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The only people that should be hustling is Little League players. That's my opinion.
Right. Yeah. And
You run it out to first base.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is selfish.
It is for sure. I will admit I was going hard for like the summer last year, but then my brother got COVID and I was like, it's not worth it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and there was that sort of in between space where the summer, they were kind of like, hey, you can be outside if you are being cautious. And, I think everybody during the summer last year was just like, let's go have as much fun as we can have while we can have it, Yeah.
It's a different kind of hustle culture. Speaking of hustle culture, that often involves going to multiple shows a night, which every once in a while you can be late for. And that's going to bring us into today's topic. That wasn't one of the best segues I've ever had, but it wasn't one of the worst either. Being late, it's funny, or is it? Let's talk about it. Are you somebody who's consistently late? Have you developed that reputation, or?
You know what? I'm not late for things that I want to be at. But it is, I certainly for work, for a day job, for obligations that I would rather not do, I am always late for those.
Yeah.
And it involves a certain amount of, it always brings me existential angst, right? Where what is the point? Why am I doing this? Am I going to do this till I die? Yada, yada,
Yeah. You talked about working at a bar. Were you one that would pop in a few minutes after you were supposed to clock in?
100%. Always.
Yeah.
Consistent. And you up for it. I remember I had a teacher a career options teacher. I think her name was Mrs. Gates. And she was like, in the modern workplace, if you are late more than 2 times, you will be fired. And I wish I could go back to that class and be like, this woman is a fucking liar. Because if you are likable enough, you can be late as much as you want. And people will be like, oh, that's old lady,
He values his personal time. That's so great of him.
Yeah.
It's like
work-life balance.
Yeah.
Right. That's not something she's ever heard of. A lady should wear her pearls to work. That's where she's coming from. I worked in the service industry for 14 years, and it eventually got to the point where they just started pushing back my in time because because I always knew I was going to be running late, because I always try to put one more thing, add one more thing to my to-do list and get it in before I have to go to work. Looking at that gig as a survival job, and they knew that I was doing other things. So they weren't mad about it. And I worked hard when I got there, and always made sure to help other people out. So they started pushing my in time back, and then I'd start being late for that. And they were like, listen, man, you gotta, you're putting us out a little bit. My friends have coined Dave time as a thing.
Sure.
So, I'm with you on that. Maybe that's another reason why I picked this topic too, because it affects me.
Daylight savings time.
Have you ever had someone try to set the clock back on you? Or I guess what I mean is be like, hey, we're meeting at 3:30, Dave, but really everybody's meeting at 4. They just know that you'll be there at 4.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was still 4:05.
Yeah.
I always let people know, hey, I got caught up with work. I'm going to be a few minutes late, or the old, and I know I've heard this joke from multiple comics before, but people who say I'm on the way when they're not even ready to go.
Oh, that's Sunday night traffic. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Rush hour today is killing me. It's 1. But again, I'm with you. If I have a show, I'm always a few minutes early. If I'm going to go for it,
I think I have the opposite problem for you though, because I don't know why, but if I'm running very late and let's say I'm at home, I do that where I'm I'm on the train, and it's no, he's not. He's 20 minutes. No, I'll make it. I'll run faster, and then I'll wish the subway to go quicker,
Yeah. The subway was too slow today. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same speed as it was every day. Also, somebody may have jumped in front of a train.
Sure.
How dare you inconvenience me?
Yeah. Oh, the amount of suicides that I have concocted out of thin air while in New York is just true.
And they have to believe it because it's unbearable, you know?
Yeah. Who follows up, you know?
Yeah. I don't think anybody that I worked with. So when I worked at Caroline's, I lived in Flatbush. So I took the Q because the Q went from there to that was when the W before the W existed. And so I was the only one that took the Q into work. So I could be like, oh man, Atlantic Avenue was just a shit. We were there for like 20 minutes. So sorry. And they're like, David, does this happen every day that you have to be here? And it's funny how you kind of externalize it too. You have to find something out here to justify your lateness. At least that's what I do. And I see that like in other people too. Just like, oh man, traffic or the weather or, whatever.
Yeah. The nondescript couple of words, it's just like, okay, thank you. It's even if people know it's bullshit, it's almost like you're just offering up the social exchange sacrifice, where you're like,
Yeah.
Here it is. And you're like, yes, I'm sure that's what it is, and then you just
Sure.
Yeah.
You notice some people, they'll be like, yeah. They'll be like, all right, you're lying to me. Let's not make it worse. It's like,
Yeah.
They're like, okay, cool. Yeah, no, you don't need to describe it because you're just digging yourself into a hole. Like I've seen that so many times.
Yeah. You're here. Let's put it past us.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
You can't laugh at that.
I was late getting here tonight. I'm late everywhere I go. You ever been so late for work that you just start to take your time? That feels pretty good, right? There's like a psychological shift. At first you're over here, you're like, oh, I'm so late. And then you're like, well, nothing matters now, right? I'm already late. I'll be more late. I'll show up naked at this point. I don't care. I'm not a jerk. I'll hurry. If it's 5 to 10 minutes. If it's 20, I am getting a muffin, okay? You should too, right? Like, because what does a boss always say when you get there? They always go, it doesn't matter if you're a minute late or an hour. Late is late. It's like, okay, it's definitely going to be an hour then. It's all the same to you? All right, well, I got like 58 minutes left. That's definitely enough time to get a muffin for sure. I don't care enough to put in any effort with my excuses anymore. I really don't. I'm too comfortable at my day job. I walked in the other day. I was like, sorry I'm late. Traffic was, I don't know, hungover today. I don't know. You should get to be honest. You should get to just look at it and be like, sorry I'm late. I have trouble being on time for stuff that makes me sad inside.
Love that.
And it stinks that like you have to like have something bad have happened to be late, or if you want to call off, something bad has to have happened in your life. That's not fair. We should be able to call out for good stuff. I'll call in one day and be like, yeah, it's me. I'm not gonna make it in today. No, I'm fine. It's just I saw a pug wearing a coat and I just want to chase this good feeling today. I feel pretty good. I'm down to just the one day job, which is nice. I used to have to work 2 day jobs, which sucked real bad. Probably the worst thing about it is that when you have 2 day jobs, sometimes you will have to call off a shift from one job so that you can go and cover a shift at another job. And that feels pretty bad. If you don't know what it feels like you are canceling a date with your sister to steal away and blow your dad. That... And I can see some of you not liking that at all. But then I can see some of you who I know have worked 2 jobs and you're like, that's exactly right. That is 100% what it's like.
All right. The pug reference, that was a callback to an earlier joke. If listen to the rest of the album and you will understand it. You'll get it in full context. There's some breadcrumbs there for you. Plugging the whole album. So Sam, kind of take us through the conception of that bit. What inspired it, and how did it evolve over time?
It literally was this job that I am about to leave currently. And I was just consistently late. And I think it started maybe as a tweet, just the line of like being so late for work that you start to take your time. I think that might have been a tweet. And it took me a while before I was like, oh, I should do that on stage, because I think it's a very common feeling, that like, those good bits that you have where you're like, oh, this is something that like everybody thinks, but they don't realize they think.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I started it from there, and then was just kind of doing that and searching for other pieces to it. And then I think the second piece that I arrived at was the, it doesn't matter if you're a minute late or an hour, late is late. And then I was like, all right, well, it's definitely going to be an hour. And yeah. And then the other half of that joke, the working 2 jobs and you have to call off a shift to go cover another shift, that was a joke. I think that might have been predated the rest of it, but just in the course of putting together the album, I was like, oh, it makes sense to group these together, which is kind of interesting. Whenever this is my first album, and writing it, you don't realize that like, oh, if you go back far enough, you can amass like a good chunk, as long as you can group things together strongly enough, and have it make sense to be done together. Yeah.
Yeah, that connective thread. It's funny how that works. You may not have told a joke for years, and then when you really sit down with what you have, it's like, oh, wow, never saw that one.
Yeah.
Speaking of connection, and like you were saying, I think this bit really it speaks to everybody in a different way. It's
definitely
something that
hyper relatable.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And that's why that's why it's funny, is because whether you are the one who's late, whether you're dealing with somebody who's late, whether you're, somebody who's always on time, who is pissed off when people are late, like it hits different for everybody, but it still hits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's one reason why, I really missed the crowds, is because you can see that happening in real time in front of you. What was Yeah, 100%. What was your experience with this bit in doing this? Like, this is obviously recorded before the pandemic. In like doing this in front of crowds, what's your favorite like moment? Like, do you that light bulb moment when you see like an audience get a joke, or when you see them nodding? Like, what is it that really creates that connection for you, that gets those endorphins and those that oxytocin rolling?
Like this joke specifically, where is the point? Actually, my favorite part is to see a crowd go for is the thing about the boss, where they're like, okay, well, it's definitely going to be an hour, just because. It's like a universe. Nobody likes working for anyone. Nobody likes to be under command, under control, So just a little moment of like, nah, fuck you, It's, it's a sweet moment. And it is, I think it's far away my most, where I've had people be like, I thought about that joke today because ... It's just friends and like family alike. They're like, I thought of your joke today because I was late for this, or I thought about your joke because my boss was being an asshole to me. And that makes,
Bosses are often our adversaries.
Yes.
So it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Anytime you can stick it to them, even if it's just in a joke, it creates that connection. Because even if you are a boss, like you've had a boss at some point where you're like, yeah, fuck that guy.
100%.
So you create instant connection in the bit too. You ever been so late that you just take your time? That's one of those things that everybody can relate with as well. I've done it where it's like, oh, I let them know that I'm going to be late. Cool. I'm going to eat some soup. But in your case, it was muffin. I'm going to get a muffin. Was that a conscious choice? Was that based off of an experience? Did you try other things?
No, it's based off of firsthand. I'm off muffins now because I'm trying to eat better. But that was my go-to. My favorite thing in the world that they have only in New York is just like, bodega muffins. And I would always get a double chocolate one. And then finally, my ex-girlfriend was like, that's cake, right? You just eat cake every morning.
Yeah.
You just start your day with cake. Like, no, it's not. But yeah, that's a very, for me, a visceral thing of because that's my first move, truly, is when I am going to be late and I've accepted it. And it's like, fuck it, I'm late already. Who cares? I do go get either a coffee or something to eat. Mm-hmm. And even it's part of the process of getting over the embarrassment of walking in late with food in your hand. It's just the balls to do that is remarkable. But it is the first thing that I think of when I think about just saying, fuck it,
A double chocolate muffin is definitely the right choice every time. Just going to say that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially if you're on your feet a lot in New York. I don't think, as long as you use a lot of your energy, it's not that bad. But morning cake, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah, cake, baby.
It's worse at night, but whatever. I'm on a tangent right now about nutrition, but okay.
Yeah, I noticed that the other day. But Sam, I think you touched on a pain point as to why some people might not find being late funny, and it's the embarrassment factor of it. It's always having to have a story to justify it and amplifying whatever the current circumstances are. And was it your intent to kind of fight that embarrassment with this joke, kind of leaning into the being late?
Yeah, very much so. It is. Yeah, it definitely was it seems so, I hate using the word cathartic for such a dumb dickhead joke, but it certainly makes me feel better, and it made me feel good because it's the little tiny pains in your life that are just constant. So you can't not think about them.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because right now, as we're having this conversation, there's somebody who is freaking out because they need to be at work at 3:30 and they are 20 minutes away. And, it's universal. They're concocting a story in their head as we speak. And so that's why I think this joke hits on a lot of different levels. When you talk about the 5 to I'm just going to be an hour late. That's one of those platitudes that we've all heard. So everybody can connect on that whether you're a minute or you're an hour, it doesn't matter. And just kind of, again, like you said, it's one of those things that everyone thinks, but doesn't realize it because we've all heard it.
Yeah.
Nobody thinks to just be then I'm going to be an hour.
Yeah. 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 If you're making it a question of degree and it's just wrong. Okay. Well, then I'm going to stay in the wrong, but I'm, have an extra hour in my day because you have made it so black and white. So, well, then I'm definitely going to be in the red, and who gives a shit?
Yeah. Making it black and white. And I think that's a big reason why a lot of topics are off limits, in quotes, because we have a tendency to put things in black or white. We have a tendency to categorize things. This is good or this is bad versus it's just information. It's just data. It's just being late it's not good or bad necessarily unless you decide it is. And this joke kind of calls that into question too. Maybe I'm reading too deep into it, which I tend to do. And I always throw that caveat in there. I'm how does this really connect on a deeply spiritual level? You're dude, I was just late for work one day.
Make it as deep as you think it is.
Yeah. Just the calling out the excuses, calling out traffic was, I don't know, hungover.
Yeah.
That kind of gives it an honesty too, because we try to, again, add so many different layers to the story of being late. It's just just say you were late. It's fine. You're here. Get to work. whatever, or whatever the case may be. What was the best excuse that you've come up with for being late?
God, that's a really good question. And I've had so many.
Just start listing them off.
I think one time, I was like a little bit late for work once because I had gotten the flu really bad and it had broke, and I ended up being able to go to work. Like in the middle of the night, I got like, when a flu breaks and you get the night sweats and you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I got on the train and I was just too dehydrated. So it was a crowded morning subway and I ended up passing out. So I got off the train, waited for like 15 minutes on a bench, drank some water, and I was like, I think I'm okay. But I wasn't that late that day. So I just went to work and I was fine. And then a week after that, I was like an hour late for bullshit. And I used that story from the week prior, like flu, and I passed out on the train. And it's like, it came out so well because it was like, well, this is a true story. I'm just stealing it from a week ago,
Right.
With a little bit of dissonance, you might have passed a polygraph.
Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because,
this is a true story. It's almost like
you didn't specify when it happened.
It's almost like the classic getting on stage and being like, this happened to me a few days ago. So a few days ago when it happened like years ago.
This happened 6 years ago, but it's still plausible now.
One day I was 5 hours late for work.
Really?
It was one of those where I had to be at work. I had to work a double. I had to be at work at 10 a.m. And
you weren't that late.
I got there at like 3 p.m.
So you missed the whole lunch shift.
Yeah, I missed the whole shift. It was a brunch shift. It was downtown Cleveland. We were a few blocks away from Progressive Field. The Yankees were in town, so sold out game. And the night before, I was like, because I closed the night before, and after work, it's like, all right, I'll have a drink. And then that never just ends up being a drink. It ended up like going to an after hours spot doing cocaine until 8 a.m. And then I was like, I'm just going to take a quick nap and then get to work and it'll be fine. And then I woke up, and in my apartment at the time, I didn't have any natural sunlight in my bedroom.
Sure.
So it felt like, I had just slept for a little bit, and I looked at my phone and it said like 3:05. And I was like, wait a minute, that doesn't feel right. There was like a pool of blood on my pillow because my nose had like busted open in the middle of the night, from doing excessive amounts of coke. And I had like 20 missed calls. It went from them being like, where are you, to being pissed, like, if you're not here. And then it turned into concern, and I felt so bad. It felt like just watching the character development of everybody that I was supposed to work with, like, and I just felt so bad for letting them down. Like, they got through the shift. It was a nightmare for them. So I went to a pizza place a few doors down and just bought like a dozen pizzas and brought them in. And like, I was like, can you please not be mad at me?
Traffic.
And I used the blood on the pillow. Like, I took a picture of it because I still kind of wanted them to feel bad for me because I felt bad,
Yeah. How dare they?
What's that? Yeah. Right.
Wait, you essentially, not only did you fess up to being late, but then you fessed up to, I was late because I did a lot of cocaine. Here's the blood on my pillow.
Yep. I'm one who's like, when someone's like, why did you do this? I'll be like, well, here's exactly why, but here's pizza. So
sure.
Pizza.
Yeah.
If you're in that deep, you just own it and you're like, I am sorry. Let me make it up to you. Yeah.
Right. You have to address the cocaine fueled elephant in the room. And, if you don't, you're just digging yourself into a deeper grave. Luckily, I at that point I had built enough like rapport and trust, but the manager did pull me into his office. Like, if you do this again, we can't have you come back because you're letting everybody down. And that's the part that really got to me the most. That was like the second to last time I ever did blow. So, Character development, everything's better now. Like letting people down, like that's a big part of why being late might not be considered funny for some people is because you're either on the receiving end or you're on the giving end, and either way you feel shitty.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
I used to be able to be late all the time just because jobs were just whatever. But now in the past year, I started PAing on films. And so as a PA, you're just like a complete bitch. And like you're at the very bottom, you're not union and you're hourly. And they're like, if you're not a half hour early, you're late. And so it's just like my mindset has had to change because it's like your one chance to like get in there and be like get in the union. Once you're in the union, it's like your job is like ironclad, but it's still not good to be late. But it's like it's weird for me, but I enjoy it though. So I'm happy to be there. And you get all this, like, you go there and there's a buffet of food. So it's like the sooner you get there, the sooner you get food.
Yeah.
You get there early, you're not on the clock, and you get food, and they won't yell at you. So
they really put the God.
Yeah, it's totally different.
That's crafty of you, Steve.
Yes, very. I cater to them, so.
Yeah, right. Nice. I think a lot of it too has to do with like self-identity. We don't want to be known as the person who is, late, because with that comes a built-in story of what it means to be late. So like, how would you define lateness from that vein?
Oh, like, what is it I think I know what you're saying. I think essentially the worst, when it becomes bad or like something real where you're like, oh, I feel shitty about it, is when you end up fucking over people that you work with. Not even your boss, but like it's the coworkers, especially like waiting tables, stuff like that. It's like, oh, you've fucked over probably 2 or 3 people, right? Because everybody's having a harder time. They're probably getting less tips per table percentage, because they can't do as good a service as they're overworked. So it's like this element of like, not only are you late, but you're going to walk in being hated by your peers. And that's when you're like, I'm so sorry. I'll be on to, it'll never happen again. You know what I mean? Anybody can fuck over a boss because fuck a boss, but
right.
When
fuck
it's,
a boss.
Yeah. It's, that scene in Full Metal Jacket where it's like the guys in the platoon beating him up because he's fucking over. You know what I mean? That's the kind of pressure that makes you actually be like, I'm sorry, I'll do better.
Don't bust out the dove.
Yeah. Yes.
Or whatever. It was bars of soap, right?
Yeah. Bars of soap in a bookcase, which is you at a service job if you do cocaine and you're late twice, So
yeah.
That should be the consequence. I think just the hammering home on yourself too, because we all want to be perceived as a good person. Like nobody's out there like, yeah, even people who walk around who are like, I'm a piece of shit. Deep down, they they don't want to be seen as a piece of shit. Like, no, we hate you. They want to be seen as like a lovable piece of shit.
Yes, exactly. You might think you're a piece of shit, but even a person who identifies as one is still desperate for love,
Right.
Mm-hmm. And it's that like, let me identify this. Let me be out in the open about it, but I still want you to like me. And that's why I'm doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Steve, I think you said something too. If you're not a half hour early, you're late. I remember as a kid being told that 5 minutes early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're 5 minutes late, like you're fired. And that kind of plays into the, whether you're a minute or an hour late, you're late. You're the same degree of late,
right?
That's false.
You know how many times I've showed up a half hour early and then it took an hour and a half for anybody to even care? Or that's the funniest part. There's no real accountability there, but you still have to do it just because.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Do you think it's that search for validation too? Like the people who show up extra early, do you think that plays a role into it?
What do you mean, to win favor and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a rat race. They fire people like they drop like flies. So that's why I've always had the mentality of like, let's go, let's do it. Let's have a good attitude, everything. I have to show up with a good attitude or else you will get fired.
Mhm.
Do they really fire people that easily?
Oh yeah, because PAs are just so easy to come by, and so many of them are unreliable that it's all just kind of like easy to just dismiss them because they want it to be cutthroat. Because it's a huge privilege to be like on a film, and so it's easy to fire people because it's just there's some of them are just ungrateful and don't realize the opportunity.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
Especially in a position that's easily replaceable.
Yep.
It's easier to do that too, because a dime a dozen kind of mentality. Yeah, I always felt bad when I was late because I liked my coworkers, but again, it was always like just the habit of trying to do one more thing, throw like one more thing on my to-do list before I come to work. Because it's not like I was just sitting around, like, oh, let me play one more game of Madden or whatever. I always felt like I was justified in it, and then once you realize that you're actually impacting other people, it's like, okay, maybe I should stop doing this. Maybe I should actually you kind of create a psychological shift at one point. I mean, you even say, the exact term psychological shift when it comes to being late for work. You kind of transition the power to you, like the employee versus the boss. When you talk about like when you're running late an hour or a minute, like it kind of gives you the power in that situation. Was there kind of an intentional shift of power in this case? When you deal with a boss and you're running late, you're kind of in a position of power, especially if they need you. Was that kind of a conscious choice?
I wish I could say it was conscious. It wasn't, but I do think that's just the conclusion that you arrive at. Maybe you don't, maybe not consciously, but like that is essentially what you're doing, which is, like I am late, but now I am, for as long as I am late, I am my own man or woman, like I am the captain of my fate for as long as I am not at work. And when you like realize that it is like a little bit of like, no, I'm still free until I am there. And since I am committed to not being there on time, I am going to enjoy every last minute of it, So yeah, there is like a power there,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that's not a choice a lot of people make. I mean, when I'm late, if I'm like, if a light turns red, all of a sudden I'm mad at the traffic light. Like I'm getting mad and stressed out about things that don't normally stress me out. And rather than just kind of leaning into it, which sometimes, I've done. And it feels better to do that, when you have the power in a situation.
Mm-hmm.
But there are also times where it does make you feel helpless. I will say I once, the second to last straw that I broke in a long distance relationship was I missed the mega bus in New York to come home for Easter. So she had to pick me up from Pittsburgh because I had to take the last mega bus of the day. It went from New York to Pittsburgh, and then you get on another one to Cleveland, and there were no more to Cleveland. So she had to drive all the way to Pittsburgh, and the entire time. What's that?
How far of a drive?
2 hours. Yeah. Okay. And it was at like 1 a.m. too. And it was the longest, like the 8-hour bus ride felt like a day. Because I knew I was in so much trouble. And then eventually, like 2 months later, when she ended the relationship, I was like, I deserve this. I wasn't even mad. I was like, part of me was like, why? But then the second I said why, like it was a montage of all of the irresponsible things that I had done over the time. And there is a fear, like we tend to go to like worst case scenario in our heads when things like being late happen. And sometimes it's rooted in reality, but a lot of times it's based off of just you're accruing these little pinpricks at a time. And eventually it gets to that big one. And while being late in itself isn't as like heavy of a topic as, say like abortion or murder or like these dark topics that we've had in the podcast, there are like, if it's, over time, if you accrue enough of those, it becomes a bigger, like more meaningful topic. But what you do at the end of the bit, you do that joke about canceling a date. What was it? Canceling a date with your sister to blow your dad.
Yeah.
At the end, you address that there are two responses to that joke. There are the people who get it, who've worked two jobs and had to do that, and then there are the people who haven't, who don't have that experience, who are kind of like looking around like, why is this funny? There's kind of an explicit addressing as to why it's funny, whether whether you're putting it out there in that way or not. Mm-hmm. It's kind of baked into this bit, and I think it's really well done. And it brings it to a conclusion where you kind of address that there's a group of people who are always late or like have to deal with that, and there's the people on the other side of it.
Oh, who never, who just get to enjoy. Yeah.
Working backwards from that, the point that you make about you something bad has to happen for you to kind of justify being late. There's not something good happened, so I have to call off work. Like, that's a world where you're kind of creating a parallel universe in this joke. What if we lived in a world where it was acceptable to be late because something awesome happened or something good? I have to call off work. I saw, in this case, like a pug in a sweater. Mm-hmm. That's a callback to a previous joke, but did you try other things other than that callback in that spot?
Yeah, I think initially I was like, my girlfriend blew me this morning or something like that. Yeah. Which is funny, but it is maybe a little too needlessly dirty. But that is how I felt. Because it's like, the truth is that people do that. They call off work for good reasons. They're like, I'm going to fuck around today. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to do this. But you have to lie and say it's bad. Mm-hmm. You get that moment of honesty where you're like, guys, I just realized that like work sucks and I can go do this instead. So just today, I'm going to do that. And you can't do that without just so many people being angry with you. And it's absurd, the case,
Right. Yeah. Right. Like, be happy for me. All right. This is for my mental health. This is my well-being.
4-day work week now.
Yeah.
Oh, let's talk about it.
Yeah. Right.
Solve all our problems. I'll just get an extra day off every single week. Wow. Just imagine.
A friend of mine, we used to have this topic about what's the best versus what's the worst day of the week. And at some point he got to he made one of my favorite points ever of all time in his ranking system, where he goes, if you have ever paid me to work on a Friday, I have robbed you blind. Which is absolutely true, I think, of most people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. And I think more companies are kind of seeing that.
Yes.
If they can see it in the bottom line that, my people are more productive when they only work 4 days a week, that means I make more money. It's going to happen. It's kind of selfish, but again, it's funny to see, if we lean into with how people perform at their best, they're also happier. Yes. So if people are performing at the top level, they're happy. And if people are happy, they're performing at their top level. And so it's nice to finally see companies start to realize that.
Yeah. Because who can't do 4 days of work and then be like, hell yeah, holiday weekend, every weekend? It would change lives.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about labor. I mean, Labor Day is coming up in about a month. I mean, that week, people are going to get the same amount of work done in 4 days as they do in 5.
Yes.
I just like exploring a world where it's okay to call off for good things and people to be okay with it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I didn't think
the only time that is a realistic proposition is maybe I or my wife just went into labor. You know what I mean? That's it. That's the only. Suddenly you're like, sorry, a new life.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was thinking about this too, because I was like, maybe since we're doing a shorter episode, maybe Steve and I can hang out and talk a little bit about the Simone Biles situation and why, people are joking about it, and like Michael Che posted jokes about it, and people were ripping on him. But in this case, she's calling off of work for mental health.
Yeah,
and her work just happens to be the Olympics. Why isn't that okay?
Yeah.
Because there's too much pressure, and it shouldn't be. It's like the amount of pressure is very warranting of. I don't know. It's weird. It's ironic.
So let's put this in terms of work. Let's say you closed a deal with a giant client, the biggest deal your company has ever made. And then you've got another prospect coming up. You got a prospect call coming up and they're counting on you to close the deal. But suddenly you don't feel like you're at your best. Like I might be working against the well-being of my company. What if I just kind of sit this one out? People wouldn't be mad at you, I don't think. If people who are worth working with, I should say, wouldn't be mad at you.
She's not even getting paid.
Right.
She has to pawn that medal.
Yeah.
That's it.
Is that true?
That's all. I mean, she probably has sponsorships, but that's
Yeah.
different. But like, and that's related though. So I guess there's kind of that, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It's weird.
But she'll still have those sponsorships now. I don't think anybody drop her. They're not going to have the balls to drop her now.
It's
Now,
gonna look real bad. People boycott them.
Oh yeah. It would look awful if I don't even know who sponsors are, like American Family Insurance or whatever.
Don't make me sing it.
Yeah. Sorry.
but I do. It is. I'm firmly on the side of her because it is like. I guess that's what I mean. Like you don't get to call off just because a job sucks and you need a single day.
Mm-hmm.
And when you the wild, I can't imagine the wild stress and anxiety that being an Olympic athlete puts on both your body and your psyche.
Mm-hmm.
You can't bow out at some point and be like, hey, I am dying inside because of it's yeah.
I always bail for mental health reasons in everything.
Yes.
And I don't have any remorse because it's not minor, it's not, or it's major enough for it to be warranted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Totally
There are days where again I'm staying home today. I'm sorry. I need this for me. I've been burning the candle at both ends for too long. I got to relax. Sorry, I'm not going to be able to make it. And she kind of did the same thing, but also U.S. Gymnastics is not a great employer based off of their track record over the last few years with this Larry fella. So having to commit yourself to that like organization that has let you down so hard, and they're telling you that the country is counting on you, like absolutely walk away from that.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. And it should be okay. It should be okay to be late for a job that makes you sad. Like be better, company. Like
be best.
Yeah.
Figure it out.
Right. And that's the thing too, because now we're seeing like over the last year, I've been doing a lot of research on turnover and retention. And these companies are like, why are people leaving? Why don't people want to come to work? No one wants to work anymore. And it's like, no one wants to work for you. Mm-hmm. You don't have a reputation as somebody like, if people wanted to work for you, they would tell their friends and their family like, hey, you ever find yourself in need of a job? Come work here. It's great. That's instead, it's like, we're trying to pay people more. Why aren't they coming? Because headaches aren't necessarily worth more money.
No one wants to work with someone who has no self-awareness too.
Right.
Sure. So.
Right. If you want, number one, you don't want people who are just coming to work for a paycheck. And you want people to be there who are intrinsically motivated to be there. I want to work with people who want to work there. I want people to work for me who want to work for me. And if they don't want to work for me, now I have to ask questions of myself. Sure. So to flip this equation of like being late for work or calling off of work from the point of view of the employer, why isn't it funny? And what can be funny about it? Because you kind of like in the bit, you kind of, again, change that dynamic. But, there are some people that are going to be in the audience who are bosses, who are managers, who have to deal with people who have that mentality. Like, I'm going to be an hour late. Sorry. Why do they laugh at this bit?
Well, one, because nobody stops being an underling. You know what I mean? Even if you're a boss, even if you are managing other people, it's a food chain. And unless this bit makes its way to Jeff Bezos, then I don't think it's going to stop being salient because everybody has a level of work that just sucks shit.
Jeff's right next to me if you want to talk to him.
Yeah.
Oh, get him. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, he's up here with me. Just kidding. He didn't go to space. I'm in space.
Yeah.
I'm in Elon's car right now.
Mhm.
well, and it kind of, I guess generally this isn't like 100% true, but right, comedy tends to be better for people who are not as well off, right? You ever done like a charity gig at a country club? It's fine. It's never great because those people have good lives, you know?
Mhm.
They don't desperately need anything to take the edge off at the end of the day. To me, it kind of goes hand in hand with what you're talking about, which is why are bosses laughing at this, which is like, well, because they are still being told what to do. And generally speaking, are also filled with angst at their day, right?
David, you took me to a corporate event once at a country club.
Yeah.
I was like, these are not my people. No. But, you know, whatever. It's nice to schmooze with people with money, but I'm not a manipulator, so I don't care to do that either, though. So
yeah. And the truth is they don't need it. They don't need what you are offering, you know, which that's on them. It's not on you, but
yeah.
Sure.
They were nice people, though, honestly.
Yeah. And that's the thing, too, is again, it goes back to the power dynamic. Like, would there ever be a comedy roast of Jeff Bezos, and would he get it?
Do you think that Jeff Bezos knows the world hates him?
I think there's that lack of I think there's a little bit of what's the word? Aggrandize, where he kind of is warped by his own self-perception. Sure. And he may be like, do people hate me? I think some people hate me, but I think he thinks he's more loved than hated, and the media lies, and I don't know. I feel like he's probably a little bit warped by his money.
100%. Yeah. And just removed from, you know, if it's been years and years and years since he wanted for even a major thing, you know, there's a disconnect, right?
Yeah. He doesn't. I'd be willing to bet he doesn't have a Twitter, or at least he's never been on it. Like, if he does,
yeah.
So I mean, he doesn't care. That's interesting.
That comes with money too. So there's like. Yeah.
I feel like everybody needs that catharsis. Like, I feel like everybody has something that is just driving them up a wall, that if they could laugh at it, it would make it better for them. It would like improve their mental health. I feel like, you know, if everybody is dealing with problems on some level, even if you are the richest man in the world who could leave this planet, it's got to be something.
Sure. But what is it? You know,
it's I know, right?
Really foreign to you or I.
Yeah. And I could just imagine like trying to do crowd work to just like learn about Jeff Bezos. Like, he's the guy in the front row. What do you do for a living?
Yeah. You can't, nobody has a bit where they're like, doesn't it suck when the third support boat for your super yacht just never works the way it's supposed to? Right.
Yeah, when you're in your private helicopter and you're low on gas and you're panicking because you don't know if you're going to get to the think what?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I sell books. Books are made out of trees, so therefore I should call this Amazon. Be as not self-aware as possible.
Right. We've talked about having to kind of overcome that psychological shift. The self-image thing, because we all want to look good. We all want to be likable. This is a bit too where you can't really take it too far to make yourself unlikable. Because kind of bragging about being late isn't, even people who are late are like, come on, man, people are counting on you. You make it okay though. The line about not being a jerk, like explicitly saying that. Was that intentional to kind of work that in and get the audience on your side just to make sure they were with you? Like, what have you done to keep the audience on board with you throughout building a bit like this?
Yeah, I think so, because I do still feel that pressure, you know what I mean? And you do want to be, and not only well liked but by the audience, but within the bit, you do want to be like well liked by coworkers and stuff like that. That's why you get away with being late, or why I get away with it. Is like they're like, well, you're good at your job when you're here, and nobody has a problem with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think it's central to the bit, but also just the life that the bit inspires or is inspired.
Yeah.
Because on some level, everybody sees themselves in it. Everybody's been late at least once, even if you're chronically on time. The reason I think people don't laugh and you can or wouldn't find the topic to be funny is that being late is a behavior, which means it's a conscious choice. So that means if you're perpetually late and you hear somebody joking about being late and you feel triggered, that's just like a resistance to something. What is that like? Where does that resistance come from? Is it like a lack of accountability? Is it like an unwillingness? Like, I don't want to be proven wrong. Is it resisting your own reality to protect your own ego? Why would you, if you were in a position of like, oh, this isn't funny, where would you come from?
Yeah, it's got to be like a self-consciousness thing. You know what I mean? If they have a problem with it, then it has to be like this is making me feel shitty about like a true problem that I have. But also, I'm pretty tame as stand-up goes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty. I say that liking myself and my act. So I've never really had somebody react that way. But if they did, I guess that's to that joke. That's what it would be. It's like, oh, this made me feel bad because I am chronically late. And in which case, well, just it's a very forgivable quality, Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget what book I read it in, but it was something like, we only get mad about things we can do something about. And even though like it might feel like something is well beyond your realm of control, it's like little steps along the way that you can actually like take to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I feel like a lot of that has, a lot of the resistance to a bit like this would come from that. Like, I know I can do something about it and I'm choosing not to. And now I feel attacked for my choice.
Sure. Yeah. Your lack of choice is the choice,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And the rest of your album is great. It's a lot of fun. I've listened to it, I think, twice now because I reached out to you back in March, and then I listened to your album and I was like, oh, this would be a great topic. And listening to somebody's album twice, like, you catch things that you didn't the first time, especially if it's like well structured, especially if there's like depth to bits like that. So when it comes to writing a bit and connecting something as common as being late with an audience, what would you advise like a comic to do to build that connection better?
That's a good question. I think it's just important I think you have to find the thing that is truest for you first, right? And not immediately try to think of like, how can I make this relatable? You have to think, what is indubitably true for myself, and then hope that it connects, because if you're going to like force something just to be like, I bet you'll all like this. It's like, even if it's good, it's not going to feel true, I guess. Mm-hmm.
In a bit like this, people have to be honest with themselves on the receiving end of the bit. Like, if that's me, if I'm somebody who's late, like, if I come to terms with it, I too can laugh about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes that being honest about it to do that.
Yeah.
But we're resistant to being honest, for at least initially. Like, we have that recoil because we feel that fear of being kicked out of the group.
Certainly.
Which is very primal. And that's where a lot of resistance to laughter comes from, is that, like, I mean, I don't know how much of an understanding of like the physiology of laughter or the theories behind it. Like, laughter is hypothesized to be relief from realizing that the rustling in the bushes isn't a predator, or like we smile to show that I don't have sharp teeth and I'm not going to like bite out your jugular. Like we're on the same page. So let's say hypothetically you are booked to speak for the Never Late Society, and you want and you want to do this bit because as a comic you see that and you're like, oh, I got to tell this joke because I think I can get through to this group. What's your first, like, how do you connect this to the Never Late Society?
Oh, the people that don't want to, I think, go for it and hope that they are good-natured enough. I can't convince them.
Right.
Their whole life is built around being punctual. I can't. I don't know. Convince you just with my bit. I have to, I don't know, show you how I live for 2 or something like that, and show you the of being selfish enough to be late. I think I just have to blindly hope that they will get a kick out of how irresponsible. Because I think it does hit with people who are always punctual, just because everybody likes to laugh at a schmuck who finds himself incapable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you think it connect? Maybe there's another part of their life that maybe they're not late, but maybe they lie a lot or something. Do you think there's a way to like connect these two unrelated topics?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. This is a jump, but Jim Gaffigan has that good bit about like loving McDonald's and how people like base their whole personality around not eating McDonald's, and I would never go there. And it's like, well, maybe you don't eat McDonald's, but there is a McDonald's in your life. We all have these unhealthy indulgences that we love to wallow in. So
absolutely,
yeah. Even if you've never been late, there is something about you that is you, quote unquote, arriving late. That you're guilty of, probably.
If they don't get the joke, then they're late on the joke too.
Yeah. It's happening in real time. This is a meta bit, actually.
Yeah.
We've turned this very simple, to the point bit into like a meta joke.
I'm very enjoying it. It's I never thought of myself as this intellectual of a comedian.
Yeah, we've yet to do like an episode. You can't laugh at poop, like, and then turning it into this. No, it's a primal construct of fear of rejection in public.
Poop jokes. No, fecal humor. Okay.
And I think you kind of you hit the nail on the head very early on in this conversation. Is the existential angst of being late. So whether it is being late, what else in your life do you feel existential angst about? And you can apply this bit to that.
Any number of things. I actually feel like that is because of how much I enjoyed this bit and how well people have responded to it. I think that is kind of where I find myself trying to write towards now, which is like all of the things that you have to do in life that you're like, I fucking can't believe that I have to do this, which is everything from like paying rent and banking, dealing with that, taxes, a lot of money stuff. But even now I'll talk about like therapy a little bit, and how it helps, but you're like, God, I hate that this is part of it. I just have to go back over things that made me feel bad with somebody. And it's insane, Life is so hard. Has anybody talked about this?
Hold on. I have notes somewhere about it.
Existential dread.
Yeah. I mean, there really is angst baked into any given situation, whether it's something simple or something like super heavy. We all kind of have that what are other people going to think of me? You can be a Zen Buddhist monk. You can be Eckhart Tolle. I mean, you can be any of these people who put on this facade of inner peace, but deep down there's that little voice that's like, people think you're weird, man. Like, or people are going to be mad at you.
New age nonsense.
I think I don't know if you've watched I Think You Should Leave, but it really kind of plays into that inner fear of like rejection and how people double down on themselves or whatever behavior they have to kind of avoid it or overcome it. And even though it's like, and again, I watched that show and I'm like, what do you think he really meant with this sketch? Like I said in our conversation before, I nerd out about this stuff. I enjoy it for what it is the first time, but then the second time through, I'm like, okay. But it's stuff like that where we can find the silliness in it and then laugh about that. And then it'll help us be okay with the more serious side of it.
Yeah.
If you could give somebody like that advice, somebody who's like refusing to address the elephant in the room, the fact that they're always late. And, if you were to sit down with them and they were to say, help me laugh, help me find the funny in this, help me make it okay, what would you tell them?
I would tell them that it is okay. First, I would say that it is I think it's the most common, sort of everyday low scale problem in the world, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. People say like, if you're late, it's a sign of selfishness, but then it's like, okay, well then we are all generally a little bit selfish, which is very true, right? It's going to be fine. You're in good company. That is what I would.
Ooh, that's good. This is a shared experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's and you do that in the bit too. You build connection multiple times. You ever been so late for work? You just start to take your time. I'm not a jerk. I'll hurry if it's 5 or 10 minutes. You build connection there. Keeps you likable. Doesn't matter if you're a minute or an hour late. It's late. Everybody's heard that. More connection. Too comfortable to put effort into excuses. We've all been there. I mean, so there are multiple places where you prove that they're in good company if they are going through this. If they walk into the show late and then you start doing that bit, it's like, oh, this is okay. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. You can connect with that person that's like, oh man, I'm late for the show. And now people are going to watch me walk in and I'm going to be no one cares. We've all done it. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. And I truly don't care if somebody, outside of maybe referencing it, if it's obvious in the room, if somebody shows up late for the show, I don't give a shit, just sit down and start enjoying.
Yeah. Yeah. Join us. We're all having fun. Let's hope you brought that same energy too. Where would you like people to take their energy when it comes to Sam Evans, as far as plugs?
Unparalleled segues, David. I got to tell you.
I try. I'm honestly, I'll do an hour and it's all segues. That's it.
Wouldn't that be so fun for do an album just called Segues? And it's
just from top to bottom. He didn't say anything the whole time.
All of my social media is at really Sam Evans, REALLY Sam Evans. reallysamevans.com. If you want to email me, it's reallysamevans@gmail.com. The album is called Sweet Baby Boy, and it's available everywhere that you can stream or buy albums. So please do that. And I'll have tour dates coming up soon, actually.
Some of those links are in the show notes. You can buy his album off of our friend Jeff Bezos's Amazon. We've been trying to get him on the podcast to talk about what's funny to him, but still no response. Still no response. Has he been on Rogan? I feel like that would be one that I could see him on.
Oh, probably, but I don't think he's been on it yet. But yeah, I could see him doing that.
He's not as fun as Elon Musk.
No,
he's not as adventurous.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos would do cocaine and not smoke weed.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
Isn't
All right.
there, weren't there dick pics of Jeff Bezos that he just scrubbed from the internet?
The
Oh
only
my God, I
person-
heard about that.
Yeah. And he just
Yeah.
has money to literally scrub the internet of his penis, which is, that's how rich he is. That you can't find a picture of his penis and it was out there.
Yeah.
That's great. He's developed dick recognition software.
Yeah.
So anytime it pops up, even if he's not tagged in it, even if the keywords aren't there, he knows. Bezos knows all. All right, Sam, thank you for joining this podcast. Thank you for helping us prove that if you are going through any existential angst, if you're dealing with the embarrassment, or if you're worried about what other people will think of when you are late, remember, it's okay to just take a step back, realize you are in good company. Everybody's been there, and you can laugh at that.
Oh, yeah.
There it is. There it is.
Podcasts. Thanks for not asking me what I thought, David.
Steve, what do you got anything you want to throw in?
Listen, I'm late to things I want to do too. So, boss.
It's all good. Steve, I'm going to edit this in post. Is there anything you want to throw in?
No. Okay.
All right, listen.
Thank you, though.
You can't laugh at that.
Special thanks to Golden Ox Studio. You can find Golden Ox Studio for all your podcasting needs at goldenoxstudio.com. Hit up Jeremy. He is fantastic to work with, a professional. He makes podcasting easy. And if you've been kicking the tires on starting your own podcast, definitely give Golden Ox Studio a look. If you'd like to weigh in on today's topic, follow us on Twitter at YouCan'tLaughPod, or like us on Facebook at You Can't Laugh at That, and tell us how you did laugh at today's topic or how you didn't. This is all about the conversation, is what I'm saying. All right. Bye.